Devanshan, and welcome to Alternate Take. I am joined today by the truly magnificent and super elusive Mo Azmi, and we are here today to talk about his recent project, Asim Abbasi's Barzakh. Hi Mo, welcome at last.
Yeah, how's it going?
Yeah, good, good. Personally, I think that like a show like Barzakh existing kind of feels like a miracle because I think it's rare to encounter in South Asia, especially storytelling like this that really like just goes for broke. And I think it's a really mad series. It's super ambitious, exuberant, imaginative, but of course, beneath all the scale and expanse, what I found so it's so tender and touching and so deeply intimate. And I feel like, of course, the series is also like I felt like at many points it was like this kind of sandbox for you guys to play in, like for artists to play in. And yeah, of course, so I loved so many things about it, and of course, over the course of this chat, we will unravel a lot of that. But let's maybe start at the beginning. Of course, you and Asim go back a long way. I think you shot like one of your short films back in 2015. But like, what's the equation like right now? I think it's been over a decade, no? Like 2015, 20. Yeah.
Yeah, almost a decade. Um, yeah, I have a very good relationship with Asim. I think the good thing is that we have very similar tastes. I think that makes a lot of difference. Like when our artists collaborate with each other, is that they kind of agree on what they like, and there's no right thing on what is good or bad. It's just like, do you both like the same things? And so when you're creating, crafting a scene or discussing anything, it's so important if you can quickly arrive to a similar conclusion, because sometimes what happens is that you'll kind of circle around something and there's, if you're not on the same page. So I think that kind of makes working with him quite seamless. And the other thing which I always find really fascinating is that we're both the youngest of like of five, and he has four elder sisters and I have four elder sisters. So I think we just had a very similar upbringing in terms of family dynamics, and therefore in terms of how we view the world a little bit, and then how we communicate. So yeah, I think there's a closeness or a bond based on that, which I've always felt with him.
And like when he brought you the or shared you the script of Barzakh, like of course this world like feels like I think anybody would have jumped at it, but also like balked at it because I think it's like so rich and so I don't know, like it's again so mad. But like, what about it really like got to you when you first read it?
Well, after Trails, we'd wanted to do something less ambitious. We were
Hmm.
like, whoa, Trails is really spread out. So let's just do something. The idea was for us to do something set in a small place, and then like all in kind of one mansion or something. We're like, okay, we'll just have controlled cast, controlled group of people in one situation in one general location. And then we were like, hey, let's kind of make it a vacation for us and let's set it in the mountains or something so that it's like super nice for us. Every one of these decisions um, bit us in the ass somehow. We ended up casting really good actors, and so they obviously good actors come with like um, a lot of weight, like, and you have a lot of responsibility when you bring these kind of people on board, and then setting it in one location, just kind of by the time you have that one location, you want to, and you visit and you're like, whoa, this is amazing, this is amazing, this looks amazing, and there's more and more scenes being set outdoors, and those outdoors are very, very vast and like difficult to get to. um,
Hmm.
so yeah, it all just blew up out of proportion. On paper, I think as he was writing and as I was reading, I think I understood like, okay, this is something that is very close to him,
Hmm.
and it's also very close to both of our worldview.
Hmm.
Like I think nature is something which is so, or like our relationship with nature is something that's, I think in South Asian cinema um, is such a topic that needs further exploration, and we've barely scratched the surface, I feel. um, because so much of our experience has since colonization and stuff has been about the separation of mind, body,
Yeah.
world, everything. So kind of letting ourselves pick up pieces slowly and see how they fit is such an important practice now. So it's quite beautiful what he's written, and we all felt it. Like that's as soon as we were all reading it, when I was reading it, and the team was reading, and the actors were reading it, we're like, okay, this is something really special, and it's a really unique point of view,
Hmm.
and a
But
very
I
necessary point of view.
Yeah, but also I read somewhere that I think somebody in some interview I heard him say that the script also had like in early phase also a lot of jinns. Is that like was that like true or is it like rumor? Like I mean he did he like had a more ambitious script and it kind of just became
What
like
is
more like he said it in an interview that the script also had jinns in the first stages while he was writing it, and then of course he kind of whittled it down a bit and then maybe yeah it got lost or something like that.
um yeah, I'm trying to remember what the very first draft was like. Maybe it did, but I think it's all part of like trying to
Hmm.
uh see or like write or explore the supernatural. And if you're talking about supernatural in South Asia and in the context of like Indo-Pakistan and that world mythology, then you're going to bring up whatever is relatable or whatever symbology kind of exists there. Although we've kind of every department, especially Asim himself, kind of made an effort to expand that symbology and also reuse symbology and rebrand symbology for what we feel works within the story.
Hmm. And also like tell me about the difference in like communication and like dialogue between pre-production when you guys are obviously having a lot of conversations about what the look will be and individual look of the scenes and series will be like, and filming itself like on set, is it all very situation oriented, very practical, or like even on set is he like even they're dealing in abstractions and like yeah going bit broad and big.
Hmm. That's a good question. I think when all the discussions about abstractions uh, happen beforehand for the most part, and on set things are quite practical. Like I think there's also when you're shooting, there's no time to discuss large things. Those things really should be discussed like months earlier, so that by the time you're on set, it's about what's happening with these people in the moment in the scene, and
Hmm.
very little else. Yeah.
But tell me about like the months of pre-production that happened on this. Like this was in like 2021. So I guess,
Yeah.
yeah. So like, what were those months like between when you first read, got the script and before filming started? What did you guys like talk about roughly? Like areas you kind of try to cover. Although that's like a very big thing, but yeah.
Whoa, yeah, that's a very big thing. um I mean, I don't think there was any area of this that we didn't cover. Usually, a good place for me to start is like asking the director or writer, like, why do you want to tell this story? What is? Let's start there. Like, why does the world need the story? Why do you want to tell the story? what is that about? So we'll start at that, and that's a very long, and it can be a really abstract conversation. It can be a really specific conversation. It can be anything, we want it to be. And then also like, what do I see? Where do I fit into this story? And what do I see? What can I bring to this? So we'll start at these larger spaces, and then we'll start whittling it down. It's like, okay, what does that mean in terms of like, what do we want it to feel like? Is it a slow thing? Is it a fast thing? Um, a bit of rhythm and pacing, and then very importantly is genre. What do we? Because every genre exists already. We're not here, 100 years into cinema inventing genres, but
Hmm.
we can take a genre that has existed and then see what do we want out of this genre, where do we want to take it. There's also subgenres, there's also mixing genres, there's also genres which exist in other cultures and other spaces but haven't fully been kind of recontextualized somewhere else. And so, and how's every different industry or country or culture treated this genre based on their own individual identity. So all these kind of conversations are very important. Pan's Labyrinth, for example, is that movie because it was set in that time, made by those
Yeah.
people, set within the context of that country. It would have been a very different movie set right outside, like in the next country over, so these conversations are very important, I feel. And then comes um, character,
Yeah.
story,
Yes.
what kind
Hmm.
of visual references are we thinking of, who are directors that we're inspired by when we think about this, what comes to our mind when we read this. In this one, it was a lot of like, it was less about other cinema. I think it was a lot about like paintings and literature. Like Asim early on had asked me to read Sisyphus, which was excellent. I hadn't read that for like a decade or something. And then like Tibetan Book of the Dead, I went through that. And there's like all these like things about mortality and how different countries in the world kind of understand mortality and how they deal with it and how they think about the afterlife. Um, so these conversations, larger conversations, are really important. And then as you get closer to the shoot, then it's like, okay, let's build a team. Who are we bringing on board? Who are we casting? Um, where do we want to shoot it? What does that place look like, feel like? How long is the shoot going to be? Then as we get really close, then it's like everyone's on board. Now it's like rehearsals and camera tests. And like I looked at your questions, like choosing that right color of pink and like, getting into the nitty gritty of like, what do we want what do we want the show to look and feel like in terms of texture and production design and visuals and lighting and actors and wardrobe and all that stuff. And then comes at the very last stage, like, okay, now let's break it down. Let's shot lists and like let's go scene by scene and figure things out, rehearsals and this and that, and recording rehearsals and kind of going to the locations, wrecking them, seeing if what we've discussed for 3 months can even work on these locations, can even work, and how if you want someone to walk out of one door, but then we don't like where they walk out from, that place, the other place is like somewhere far away. So like, then working with the ADs and the teams to see like how can we bring these things together, all the things because there's so much that you like, but then
Hmm.
there's so much that's impractical, and kind of
Hmm.
bringing those two things together, all the ideas and then all the executions. Your ideas are always here, and the execution always is kind of chasing that. And so it's all about like, suppose you get to shoot, you're just like desperately trying to make sure that all the practical executive things match all the things that we've had in our heads.
Hmm. Hmm. But does he
Does
also
that
like
kind of
you
answer your
guys?
question?
Yeah, but you guys also make a lot of like lookbooks for instance. Like does he make those things, or like are you open to making those things? I mean, I think you are because you seem like that kind of person.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I actually opened my lookbook. If you want me to just quickly show you,
Yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
my
Hmm.
lookbook open.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Here,
yeah.
window. Here, I'm gonna share this. Can you see this?
Yes, yes, I can. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so this is my board, like summer of 2021 before we shot. Um, so a lot of paintings I took as like the as an inspiration, and then some of these are just from different movies. I make up these subcategories like on my own, just based on reading the script and kind of living with it and sitting with it. Um, this is just like how this category is just like films that I feel like have captured um, people in their environments and kind of lost in the environment very well, um, or they feel one with their environment and aren't so separated. Sometimes in
A
films,
lot of
you want to
a lot of
separate
Terrence
a
Malick.
person from the place so that the person stands out, but in this, we intentionally. Sorry,
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of Terrence Malick, but of course.
sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm seeing a lot of Terrence Malick's films in here, but of course.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, this was because we wanted the scenes outdoors because we knew we were shooting in the summer and we knew it would be really bright sun. So I just wanted some stuff to see like what that would look like. Mm. We didn't do as many silhouettes as I wanted.
So these are just like these like come from you, or like some of these are suggested by him and you, like so it's an exchange.
Asim had contributed some. Uh, he'd given me the ones he liked. So there's a couple of his in here, but I think largely these are mine. I want to say,
Acha, yeah.
yeah. This so these are Asim's. I remember very particularly. He wanted to include these ones. Quite
Hmm.
beautiful. Mm. Yeah, and ensembles are something like I end up shooting a lot of ensembles. So there's a very specific way that um, ensembles can be shot, and there's a
Hmm.
specific way that I like shooting them. Like I love this stuff from Apocalypse Now. There's like it's kind of framed between two people, and there's your eye. It's all about kind of where the eye goes, and a lot of these like I don't know if you can see my cursor, but like I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
the way
Hmm.
yeah the lines by placing the people in the right place in the camera at the right place are draw your eyes towards
Hmm.
the subject, and then the kind of lighting can augment that further. So I really like these examples. This was kind of important to both of us, which is like letting nature have a voice and not being something objective but rather a bit subjective. This is a concept that we had, but then it kind of never really made it through, which is like to have top downs as like a very judgmental point of view. But I think it just became so impractical based on the kind of locations that we had. Yeah, I wanted really bright nights and then really dark. Sorry, bright day and then dark outdoors.
Hmm.
I think some of these were also awesomes. Yeah. Mhm. And then a lot of paintings, a lot of Andrew Wyeth and Renee and Ed Hopper. Yeah. So that was a board.
Yeah. And also like so when this is done, like at this point, like are even like production designers, costume designers, art directors involved, or is it just between you and him?
I think we've had a good team now where we've had working with RH for a long time. Pretty much
Hmm.
everything we've worked on has been with RH. So we work on our own, and then we kind of bring stuff to each other. But yeah, Asim Arj and I start, I think, very early, like when pretty much when he's after he's written the first draft of the script, and then slowly over time we're bringing other people in. But my work and my notes and my what I'm looking at starts very early, like kind of as
Very
I'm
early.
like right after reading that. Yeah.
Hmm. But tell me about like this synergy that you have, like a DP has with production designer, and I think that is something that is not talked. I mean, not credited a lot in discussions around cinematography. How much a production designer can like be of importance in that look. Yeah, tell me about that a little bit, and also like just the joys of working with the same group of people on multiple projects.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's very, very important to my job is like what is actually in the frame. I would say like somewhere between 50 to 90% of like what I'm shooting is kind of aided by what the light is
Hmm.
falling on and where I'm putting the camera. None
Yeah,
of it makes a difference if what we're actually shooting isn't there and working in our favor. So yeah, so regarding the PD we have had on this, Arj is one of my favorite people, and his again just it's just taste, like his taste is just impeccable, I feel, and his sync with Asim, because I think they've been like childhood friends. Like he's very in sync with him, and the three of us have a good understanding of each other. So I think what's happened over the years is like we don't have to have long elaborate discussions about stuff. Like we'll have the elaborate discussions about specifics, but
yeah.
the general understanding of what we're doing is we're all reading the same thing.
Similar wavelength, huh? Yeah. Also, Sakib is also like a kind of a recurring partner on, I think, Asim and your projects together, I think. No?
Um, and I
Yeah.
think that's very, very good. And again, just makes everything easier when you know that, yeah, okay, you can count on the other person to give you something to shoot that is kind of close to what you already had in mind. And then comes the, hey, maybe this shade of something, or like, hey, we can go with this kind of style of something or window, or you have the little specifics or things that you have in mind, things that you like. But on the whole, there's no real work to be done. And then working with both of them has, yeah, just been quite seamless.
And tell me about like when you guys like shoot, like does Asim like prefer doing a lot of takes, or like it's done within three or four, or like does it go more and more and more beyond that? Of course, it would depend also on this particular scene and the particular day, but generally, like how is he like?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like, um, t- the more you're fitting into the shot, the more specificities and more variables you're kind of dealing with. So like we usually have very particular things we want to do in one shot. Like a lot of Barzakh is like shot. We want to do like if we can do a whole scene in a single shot somehow, that's our
Mhm.
goal.
Hmm.
If for some reason we have to split it or break it up, then we do. But if we can tell the whole thing in one, then that's usually the goal. But when you're doing that, there's so much specificity. There's like actor slash behavioral things that are happening that you have to capture. Um, and then there's information you want to show in the space, in the room. There's a lot of stuff going on. So we end up doing a lot of takes just because we know, like, okay, this is the one shot. Like, this is what, like, the whole scene is going to be. Someone's going to be watching this for like a minute or 2 minutes. It better be good and it better hold their attention. And it better communicate everything effectively. So, yeah. So I think because of that reason, we end up doing not a few takes. So we end up usually doing a lot of takes.
Yeah, yeah, I did imagine that. Uh, Also, like, let's talk. I mean, this is something that also struck me a lot. Like within, like, when I saw that opening scene, which is just like so stunning and sensuous. And tell me a little bit about like the gaze that the show has on men, which I feel is also a little bit queer. It's soft. It's not something that we see often in South Asia, and I think that very tender, very fragile, and yeah, just very sensuous kind of gaze the show has towards men. How did you guys arrive at that?
I think a bit of that was in the script, and I think it just kind of naturally happened through casting and through behavior, and then through a lot of like small choices. I think it's also important, like this, what the story is about is um, vulnerability, and then accepting things as you come to terms with
Mm,
mortality, and and kind of a lot of
yeah,
shedding. And one of the
shedding.
big things that um, South Asia collectively has to shed is it's this like really, and it's not just toxic masculinity, it's
Okay.
just general, a lot of toxic traits in culture, and a lot of
Mm,
it has to do with um, I think less through about masculinity and a little more about power, and like
mm,
and what power means. And right, and at this point, mostly men and hetero men hold power, and we've held it for a very long time. And I think everyone in the world is starting to see how easily abused that can be. And I think part of, let's say, the opening scene is like how sensuous this guy is willing to be with this
mm,
girl around him. He is vulnerable, he is open. But as soon as he finishes that conversation, he immediately kind of brings in the power of
mm.
capitalistic thing
The
into
conditioning, the
it,
conditioning.
because
Yeah. Mm,
yeah, the conditioning, what he thinks, what his idea of what will make this other person happy, what will make this
yeah.
relationship work and kind of acceptable publicly. And it's all these like external stimuli, external dynamics, and external conditioning, and external cultural cues that this person is is in sync with, um, even though he was just moments ago so vulnerable with this other person. So I think, and that tracks, like you see what that mindset at that age goes on to become. And so it's
Yeah.
so important to show that how sensuous someone can be, but then this greed and this like exclusivity that they think is apex, that they think is the way to be, kind of,
Crashing
where that
on.
leads them.
Mm,
It's like shit,
yeah.
and intimidation and fear, how hard all this is. And then we wanted to show the softness, to kind of show you how horrible this can be, and this, and how this can get affected. Like these two are very different things in dealing with
Oh,
people,
yeah.
and also
Juxtaposing.
dealing with.
Mm, juxtaposing that. Yeah, I guess. Also, tell me about just like shooting in the Hunza Valley, which I just just seems like so ethereal, and I'm just giving me travel pangs like when I was watching it. But tell me about filming in a place like that. Was it the location that Asim always had in mind?
We looked at a couple other locations, but I think I had definitely been pushing this for a long time. Pretty much soon after we finished Trails, I was like, because I think Asim hadn't really ever been to northern areas,
Hmm.
kind of up until the
And
Ricky even.
You have been there.
But yeah, I've done a lot of work and I've been shooting there for a long time. I've been camping there. I go every year. And I've shot a lot of things over the last 10 years up north. And so I, so I think the idea of doing something narrative and long and proper over there was just in my head for a very long time. And I think when I kind of, poked and put that in Asim's head a little bit, hopefully, I think maybe it grew out of that a little bit as well. And yeah, it just felt right. It's also the town itself and the culture
Mm,
of the space and the people is so sweet and so wholesome, and they're so inclusive. And it's kind of everything we wanted the story to be about. And they already hold all of these things in view. They already have fairies as part of their culture. They already really view nature and humans as like one thing, in
mm,
their heads. So it's all really they already embody everything we're trying to say.
mm.
So it just kind of fit so naturally and it happened so organically. It was kind of beautiful.
And but tell me about this role that geography can have in storytelling. Just these massive boulders, the leaves, the natural elements that feel like they're in almost every scene. Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that aspect.
Yeah, I think we really wanted nature to be a kind of larger than life force in the whole piece. And then sometimes these larger ideas can get lost. So we were very adamant on making sure every scene contained some element of nature. So that was a big something I really wanted to do was make sure every scene has like either fire or either water or like some smoke, or it has the sun peeking through, or the village
Mm,
has wood texture, leaves, like. And then Arij did such a beautiful job of like even indoors in the hotel, you have these like just there's florals or leaves or the curtains or statues and everything. Like we just wanted to make sure that it feels like wherever you go in this world that these characters inhabit, like nature is seeping in from the windows and like just covering them, and that's kind of what ends up happening in the story as well. So I think that's a very big and very important part of it, because that's kind of actually what's happening if you give it enough time. Like
mm,
if we just disappear from this apartment, if I just disappear and humans were to disappear, it becomes like I Am Legend. Like the vines will sleep in, and
yeah.
the the molding will come through the cracks, mushrooms will grow in the corners. Like nature is doing its thing, we're just really holding down the fort
Mm,
and not letting it right now.
mm,
So it's important that like that really came through. So I don't know if it did or not, but that was the intention.
mm. But also that hotel that you guys shot in, like that pretty much was there before you guys shot. And like, what's the stuff that you guys built? Like the atrium, those things. So I guess was built. That the tree and those kind of things.
Yeah, so the place itself was the it's like the Prince of Hunza or something. That was his house. And so, or the
Oh,
king of Hunza or something. So he was like in some corner room when we were shooting there, and we got permission to shoot there. The producer and I had this meeting where we met the Rani or the queen and had
wow.
tea and biscuits with her. Yeah, this is the producer Wakas and I went to have that meeting, and we somehow got permission, so we were quite lucky. And then the Arij and his team built that atrium outside, so there was
Atrium.
construction, and they also built a whole tree over there as well. That entire tree was kind of constructed.
So the prince like lives there. Like so, there are people living there when you guys are shooting.
Yeah, just the king and queen, no big
King and
deal.
queen. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also like, am I muted? Yeah. But also tell me, like, when you shoot outdoors on exterior locations, like, do you view the weather as your enemy or your friend?
Oh, that's a great question. Almost always is my friend. because I the only time it's not my friend is like when it's like super sunny. That
Hmm.
becomes a bit tough for me because and it's not the right time of day when it's super sunny and it's like early morning and it's coming at the right
Yeah.
time. If we're running late and it's super sunny, that's when I'm like, screw you,
Done.
sun. Otherwise, when it's clouds, I love it. When it's a little drizzly, I love it. When it's like a little bluey, I love it. When it's twilight, I love it. And when the sun is at the right place at the right time, I kind of love it.
Hmm.
So yeah, if we, most of the time though on these things, like you're scheduling things. So like
Ha.
where we know, okay, this is a sunny scene, so we're going to schedule at this time. But then that always doesn't work out because there's a lot of scenes where like you can only go to a mountain once and you have to film like a whole day's worth of scene there. So at some point
Hmm.
I have to shoot in like those bad hours for me where it's
Hmm.
like so washed out. And so there are some scenes like that, and I don't like those scenes, but what can you do? Like those are the circumstances, and you just kind of have to roll with some of these things, I guess.
Hmm.
And you just do
And
the best you can in those situations.
so, but largely this was shot between like in which hours, like 8 a.m. to what 1 p.m., 2 p.m. on like within that window.
No, 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 no. All over the place. There are some scenes. We were waking up at 3 a.m. to go get into jeeps, go somewhere, climb a mountain for half an hour, be there. So we're there when the sun is coming up at 6 a.m. And then there are times where we are starting after lunch because we
Hmm.
have a week
Hmm.
of night shoots. So we're starting at like
Hmm.
5, 6 p.m. and then shooting all night and then wrapping up at like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. So it's all over the place. We were shooting for months. So like we had different kinds of weeks
So like it
based
was
on,
shot.
yeah.
It was shot in like it took how many months roughly? Started in September and then went on till.
I want to say end of November. So like 2.5 months of shoot in Hunza. And then we had like a 2, 3 week shoot in Karachi uh,
Hmm.
later on.
Hmm. Oh, was there a particular portion, like a scene in any of the episodes that really felt challenging for you? Like just imagine it when you read the script or even had conversations. Like anything, any particular scene that really felt like that makes me nervous.
Mm, yeah, I think that when I think about it now, the toughest was, or the thing I knew would be challenging was the entire final episode, which
Yeah,
largely kind of takes place up a mountain, because
mountaintop.
we really desperately wanted to shoot that on an actual mountaintop,
Hmm.
and getting so
It's
many people and a whole crew and all this equipment on a mountaintop, and then there's going to be like 20 minutes plus of screen time, so that's
hmm.
more than a couple of days, so it ended up being 3 days of shoot. And we also wanted to look good, so we want to shoot at good hours, and then we also want some continuity because it can't be like all of it kind of takes place in real time, or most of it does,
Hmm.
but the
Hmm.
sun is going like whoop. So how do you schedule it? So I knew reading that would be tough, and it turned out to be quite like a very tricky and challenging thing to schedule. So it ended up, what I proposed was like, we start we break it up. It was really messy for actors and Asim, I think, but like the way we ended up doing it was like, uh, one part of the scene is going to be early morning, and the next couple shots of that scene are going to be the next morning. The next couple shots of that scene are going to be the next morning. So for 3 mornings we're shooting one scene, then like midday we're shooting one scene, and then at twilight hours we're shooting different angles for another
Hmm.
scene. So it was really confusing and tricky. But our credit to our assistant directors, they really helped us kind of schedule and balance it well. And a lot of kudos to our actors for like understanding, like, okay, they're like
Yeah.
sometimes entire the atmosphere and the background requires that kind of priority, and it only adds to the depth of what they are also bringing to the table. We get those the vistas and the light right. It kind of just helps the entire scene
Hmm.
become full.
But like so, were the episodes shot in order, or of course I don't think it would have been, but like how did you guys manage that? So like did you do episode one, then wrap it, and then do proceed to episode two, then three, four, or like was it like with certain parts of each episode, like all over the place? Like how did that work?
Uh, it was mostly all over the place, but there was some semblance of like we're going from 1 to 6, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of overlap in between based on because there's so many actors. So there are some actors who'd fly in just for a little bit, and let's say they're in all the episodes, but they have small roles. So we'll fly them in at the beginning of our shoot, and we fly them in at the end, and they'll do a couple episodes. Then there's other stuff which is location based, like we have one large location for a couple of days, or we have one mountain, but it has scenes from different episodes. So we end up doing all the scenes for that episodes over there. So it's kind of all over the place, but generally the goal was to try to do as much as we can in the right order. But like with all things, like you just can't get that perfect.
Yeah, you can't, you can't. And tell me, once you go into post production, what is your relationship with images at that point? Do you feel you still have got control, or is that something that you don't like worry about? Like, yeah, tell me about that process, that portion of post production when color
Oh
grading
no,
starts.
I worry a lot. I very much care about what the images will be in post, and I try to be quite detailed about it.
So you stay in like
So
conversation with like, so you stay in conversation with the colorist, or or like not to that
yeah,
degree.
and then
You.
the colorist we've used for all these projects his name is Jason Mofat. He's based in London. So like all the other ones, and then even for this, like I flew to London and just sat with him for a couple of days, and we just kind of worked out. He's very good at understanding what we're looking for, and we usually have an early brief session, and he's also involved in prep. So I'm sending him like general looks
Oh.
and kind of getting on the same page early on as I'm understanding the visuals. So there's a little bit of communication there, and then later on he kind of has a general understanding of what we want, and then I sit with him on what I call shaping, which is like sometimes uh, we'll shoot something, but I don't have all the time to flag or black or something an image fully, especially when we're outdoors. So, like for example, we have this image of me right now, and over here, what I would do is like I'd kind of circle this a little bit and then bring the environment down just a little bit so that our eyes fall on the character, or our eyes fall on wherever we want the audience's eyes to fall on. And that's a bit difficult to control when you're shooting so fast and so much. Um, so that is a very important part for me in the color grade, is like bringing things up a little bit, bringing other parts of the frame
Hmm.
down a little bit, especially for key information, key scenes, when you can't control windows, when you can't control outdoors, when you can't control sun. So the color grade really helps with that. And Jason's super at understanding what that's all about.
Hmm. Yeah. But before I move on to like the part two of the chat and we talk a little bit about your journey, like do you have anything more to like want to share screen and show any more stuff, or like why proceed?
Y- Yeah, I
You
thought
can share.
I would
Oh,
just share. Um, what's- yeah,
hmm.
so I had the script
Yeah,
open. So let's
yeah,
say mm, this. Can you see this script?
yeah, yes, yes. This is episode.
So I just picked a kind of random scene that I had access to. So like
Yeah, yeah.
this is episode 1, scene 23. So JK Sweet, Shahzad approaches JK, shakes off necklace. So it was just to give you an example of like, okay, this is what it is on paper, and then we kind of discuss the scene, what it's about, what we're trying to accomplish in the scene, and then then kind of I'll show you where we take it to. So then let's go to, here. Can you see the shot list right now?
Yes, yes, I can. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So this
Yeah.
is kind of my general standard-ish shot list plan that I've used
Can
for
you
a long
just
time. So
zoom
like,
zoom little, like zoom in a little because it's like very small.
of course, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like this scene
Yeah.
123, and so
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
okay, we kind of had four shots in mind for here, and we
Hmm.
discussed this. Like this is just Asim and I kind of discussing what, sometimes he'll bring ideas to it, I'll bring ideas to it, and then we'll kind of break it down on the script. And we usually do this like and so it's
Hmm.
like we want a mid in the beginning, angle from a cluttered corner, mid wide, and then it cuts to like an OT. So I try to get as specific as we can when we're discussing it, because then we end up shooting like months later and we forget things. So better to be specific. So OT of JK looking down on Shahzad, she shows him the album, potential longer lens that tilts between album and face. So rack focus to the foreground. What the hell? So like the more specificity we can get as here, the better. And then um,
But
I'll
Miss
show
Asim,
you.
hmm.
Yeah, please go on.
No, is Asim like really like always like this super detailed with the short list, or like was it for this project specifically?
No, it's for all the projects I do. I try to be very, very specific with the shot list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's my way of, like, it's almost like cheating, like, because you just do everything early and then you forget about it. And then when you're the day before the shoot, you're like, you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, that's it. So this is my overhead for it. So like
Mm-hmm.
we follow her kind of walking in. This is, and then there's the two kids over there. There's this like scene one, the earlier scene, which is like one POV shot of the kids, then like the reaction of them looking, and then it kind of goes into this next scene where Shahzad walks in. She's facing this way. Jake is already over there. This is the shot through the mirror, and then she walks away in the mirror, goes back, and by then we've yeah, and then she goes to the bed. So that's that, and then I'll just show you. Can you see the screen?
Yeah. Yes. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the shot in the
Mm-hmm.
corridor. So she walks in from the left side. The two kids are there. The cut earlier was this. This is the POV from the door, and then these are the two kids kind of watching. And then then it cuts to this. She walks in from the left, has this little chat, and then this shot was not scripted, but it's something that like as I was passing the corridor, I was like, hey, it'd be kind of nice to see her face. And then I saw these two mirrors that Arj had put, and they were kind of creating this refraction. So this is just an example of like on the set, I saw something and said something, and then we kind of added and just did a shot very quickly, and then it cuts to the shot where she goes in the mirror, she walks past it, comes into the view, goes in front of him, and then I think this is one of those where like on paper we had it so she's just kind of does this action from behind in the mirror from like here, but then on set either Asim or Sanam or myself kind of realized it's better if she walks here and does the action. It just kind of looked better. And then we cut to this larger one from the corner, which is the cluttered corner, and then we can kind of see Sanam in the background. She walks around. There's this beautiful reflection that Arj has a painting of. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but we somehow
Yeah.
caught
Yes.
that
Yes. Yes.
unintentionally.
Huh.
Yeah, just being watched. And then Sanam kind of sits down, and then it cuts to what was in the shot list, this over the shoulder where she's on the floor and she's
Mm-hmm.
showing him the photos. And then we rack focus to the foreground as he says, "What the hell?" And then the rest of that takes place. And then she sits next to him. And so, yeah. So, yeah. So that's kind of just an example of like stuff we discussed and then shortlisted and then overhead spearheaded and then came to
mm,
set, kind of saw it in photos to make sure that we can accomplish this. And if anything needs to move around per shot, or if production design art needs to kind of move things around, and then we rehearse it with the actors, and then we shoot it. Pretty much, it's kind of what we discuss in the shot list and what we shoot are usually very close. The idea to execution has gotten better over the years. It started out pretty bad 10 years ago, but now I feel like we're getting better on this.
mm, mm. But also tell me, like on day one of shoot, are you at all nervous?
Yeah, very, of
Very
course.
nervous.
You
And
just want everything to start on a smooth note, and you especially want the actors to know that they're in good hands, and they need to feel very comfortable with, at least it's big response. I take that responsibility very seriously, like making sure the cast knows, like, okay, this production can handle us, and this production can capture us and our performances and everything we're giving
mm,
well. And it's also important that, like, yeah, there's just as few mistakes as possible. And then also after a shoot day, then we all kind of do a debrief, and then I write my own notes of, like, okay, I messed this up, or my team needs to do this better, or I need to tell art to do this, or we need to communicate something to production which was missing, or like all these other notes that I have, and then we kind of communicate those. So communication is so important, and keeping in sync with all the departments is so important. All that stuff happens on the first day, because if you're not fixing that stuff initially, then like it just splits. Every department becomes its own thing over time.
yeah. Yeah, we'll come back to Barzakh, but let's talk a little bit about your childhood, your growing up years, and your early set of interests.
Whoa.
Like, yeah. So, yeah, tell me about your childhood a bit, and your relationship to cinema, to storytelling, where you grew up. Before, of course, you went to film school in LA, but yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I grew up in Dubai, and there was not much of any art, cinema, culture, or anything over there. I got very lucky. I have a couple of sisters who were into good movies, and particularly one sister, her name is Sarah, and she introduced me to really good movies at a really young age. So I was watching Kubrick and Godard and whatever else at like age 13, 14, and just
Oh, wow.
really, I discovered like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and stuff at a very early age. And then I was like, by 15, I kind of fully delved into, I was going director by director, and I was just watching, okay, let's go IMDb Scorsese. What's the first thing? Seek it out. So he did college films, the Beard one, and this and that. I watched all his NYU films, and I watched Mean Streets and everything, and followed through on every latest film on every director. So I did the entire like filmography. So
Mm.
there was, I did Ozu. Very hard to find his films, but yeah, as many things that as I could access online, because there was almost nothing uh, at the video store except for
Ah, of course.
action and romance.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like growing up, it was just VHS, like all the popular films. So I think just, yeah, finding movies online was the big thing, and I was happy that I was born at the right time to be able to meet that in Dubai. Um, and then yeah, then when I went to film school, I was actually, it was pretty easy because I'd seen all the films they were showing, and I'd already kind of studied them, and the teachers, and I got in touch with all these great, other cinephiles, and we all just kind of formed a great collaboration, because we all just found each other. All the cinephiles kind of found each other in film school, and then I collaborated with them for a couple of years, and uh, so yeah, that was.
Also, like, tell me a little bit about reading a script. Like, has your process of reading a script like changed over the year? Of course, it would have. It will change over the years. Tell me a little bit about, like, do you make a lot of notes when you are reading a script for the first time, and what do those notes look like when you're reading them for the first time, and not like later versions when you're talking to the director? Yeah, but like at the very first time, what do you resonate with?
Uh, I think what happened, I can't remember how I used to do it, but what's happened over the years now is like I try to read a bit neutrally as much as I can. I just try to absorb it, like the story and what the writer is trying to communicate. But inevitably, because I'm so like that's my job is like I can't help but have pops of images
Images.
as
Huh.
I'm reading. And
Hmm.
so I try to read it very neutrally and just try to feel the story and feel what is happening. And but if something is speaking to me, or something's jumping out on the page or a visual or something, then I just quickly take notes because that's a one-time kind of response. That's like a gut thing that's coming out. So it's important for me to capture that and not ignore that. So yeah, so I think that's kind of what it's developed into now. So an
Hmm.
attempt to be neutral, and then also not ignoring things.
Hmm. Interestingly about this, the great cinematographer Sven Nykvist, Bergman's great DP, once said that that the cinematographer must be an absolute slave to the screenplay, and he or she should not like have any like he or she should not be like thinking of his or her own style at the very outset, but like yeah, completely surrender himself to the screenplay, and he or she must break himself or herself anew with each project. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, very much so. I think the more I've worked, the less it's I think before it used to be I'm bringing a lot of things to it because I had all these ideas, and now the more I work, I'm like, this thing is giving me ideas. Like the
Mhm.
thing is, I'm not putting too much on it. It's giving a lot to me. Like
Hmm.
as I'm reading it, I'm getting the more I read it, the more ideas and things come out to me. Like, is it slow? Is it a lot? Is it very wide? Is it very choppy? What are the colors? All these things are coming from the page, and then they're coming from just trying to be a good listener to the director and kind of seeing like, okay, what do they have in mind, and how much of that am I agreeing with, or how much of that am I seeing when they say it? Are they reading the same script I am? You know,
Hmm.
and yeah.
And is there certain stuff you try and be mindful of when you are starting work with a director so that you guys can be on the same page? Like some basic hygiene points.
Um, I think for me, it's just I've got to be friends. Like I've got to just
Good bread, huh? Together, yeah.
yeah. Like if I can't have a conversation not about work and just like about life and universe and views and this and that and everything else, and like if I can't have those conversations with someone, it's I know it's going to be a tough road, and I try to avoid that then because you just get a feeler. But if I can have all those conversations, it's usually a good start, and and if you know they're curious or interested in about the same things I am, that's usually going to be a good start. I think beyond that, when it comes to work and the script and stuff, just um, for me, it's just now it's a lot about just being a good listener, like just understanding why this person is making the choices they're making. And the more that you have conversations about like, hey, where, what's your viewpoint on this? Or like, what movies do you like? Where did you grow up? All that stuff. The more I understand this person, the more I can understand why they're choosing the why they're making the choices they're making, and the more I can kind of be in sync with those choices. And if there's stuff where I don't agree with those choices, then I can communicate and express myself a bit better on like on why I think the way I think. um, Again, these things have refined themselves over the years now for me.
Hmm. And you also said somewhere about your methods a bit. Like, you say that you simultaneously rely and borrow and research older films, older stuff, and then you use that to disrupt. You borrow and then you disrupt. Yeah, you kind of talk a little bit more about that aspect of it. Why it's important for you to lean back to the masters and then kind of use that as a way to break away and break out.
Because I think where we can't ignore what has happened already. I know some filmmakers are good at doing that. They don't watch a lot of stuff, and
Hmm,
that
yeah.
works for them. But for me, like it's so hard to ignore that, like, okay, a film, like when I read a script, I'm like, okay, this is like, you know, Antonioni's whatever film, or this is like something something, or this is like this. Like, there's a library in my head that exists. How can I ignore, 100 years of cinema? Uh, so I try to go like, okay, this has already happened in this film like this, and they did it like this, and then now we're doing it in this year, in this country, like we discussed earlier, like in this culture, and also we're doing it. That was, them doing it then. That was Bergman doing it then, and whoever doing it back then. And this is us doing something now over here. So like, that's how they did it based on their context. This is
Mm,
how we are going to do something which is saying the same thing, which is communicating a similar emotion or a fear or something, or expressing something similar. But we're going to do it this way. So kind of, yeah, that's kind of why I feel like I rely on older films, especially to understand kind of how and where I should go next, if that makes sense.
yeah, don't ignore the masters. But also tell
Yeah,
me a little bit
they weren't messing
about
around, man.
yeah, but also tell me a little bit about like the working as constantly as you do, because I feel like you're always shooting all the time with as many people as you can. Are there any like emotional and mental hazards in that process? Because how do you keep yourself, how do you face out the intervals between like prep, filming, and then the start of the next project? How do you keep your sanity intact?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think I didn't care so much uh, earlier, like 5-10 years ago, but after COVID, I got a taste of like the life, where it's like, oh, this is how nice things can be when they're when you're not working.
Yeah.
So I think since then I've really slowed down, and then what's the nice thing that has happened is that, like, um, I just try to pay a lot more attention to each project and try to give it a lot more love, and like go like, okay, I'm going to give this everything I have rather than keep my head in multiple places at a time. So I am working quite often, and I do a lot of commercials, but I'm very selective now about who I work with and what commercials I do and what are they bringing to me other than just money. And then for the larger projects, like, I take it very seriously. Like, the after I've done something large, I make sure I take time off before and adequate time off after, which is something I've always kind of done. But yeah, you're right. Like, it's extremely emotionally, mentally, and physically taxing. Like, I literally lose weight after like a 3-month project because it's just like you don't have time to eat properly, sleep properly. You're so in the thick of it, and that's all you're thinking about, and there's so much stress involved. And um, unfortunately, the film industry everywhere in general is becoming a lot more wary, a lot more conscious. As younger people also come into the industry, like, everyone is
Yeah.
very wary of like what the history in this industry has been of hours and safety hours, specifically internationally, it's still a little bit kind of um, there are some rules, but in Pakistan, there are way people are way too liberal with just like going like, oh, it's okay, let's just keep going, or like something. People are very relaxed with certain rules, and so over the last couple of years, I've become very strict on making sure that at least the stuff that I work on, I leverage any weight I can bring to it and make as big of a fuss as I can about making sure that we get adequate sleeping time, adequate turnaround time, and adequate shoot hours and adequate overtime so that everyone leaves happy, and everyone should be happy after a shoot. And people give so much to a shoot,
Mhm.
like it's everything. They give so much, um, and they should at least get that much in return, if not more.
Hmm. But also, do you ever experience like artistic fatigue? Like, how do you stay fresh and open as an artist to every day of shoot? Because you have been doing like for a while since 2010, you've been working and constantly like, and you as you and you do a lot of stuff, you get surer and maybe confident in tackling certain challenges you wish you may have not. I mean, you may have not been able to earlier. But tell me a little bit about like staying fresh as an artist, or would you say like filmmaking as an act of constant discovery kind of lets you be, yeah, lets you be multiple things constantly. Like there's no way of settling into sedimentary patterns and rock solid patterns, because filmmaking is, I guess, being constantly open to emotions, moments, and experiences every time and every day.
Yeah, I think it helps that every project is different and every
Hmm.
project takes place somewhere else and usually has new people or it's in a different country. So I think that does half the work of what you're saying, which is like, and it's about something new, there's like you're learning something new about it, or like it's a crime thriller that you're like I like delving into genres and like reading about, the the world that we're entering into. So in terms of nonfiction and watching documentaries about a world, if it's a grounded world, or reading about literature as we did on this one. So like there's always new things I'm learning from the stuff that I choose to do. So it's giving me a lot in terms of just worldview and experience. So that's, I guess, the half of it. The other half of it is like my own uh, personal, like you said, artistic fatigue, which is just um, making sure that I don't ignore reality and my own life, and keep like Bertolucci and Tarantino and all these guys, like keep the door on the studio open for real life to come in. Is like you can't ignore what's happening in your life day to day as you work on something, because it's for so long. How much can you ignore it? You'll kind of blow up. So I think that's the challenging part, is like not ignoring everything else and keeping that door open. It's a very abstract concept that is very hard to practice, because everything is telling you to ignore reality. um, all of work is constantly telling you to ignore reality, but you, I think, have to bring that in. And the nice part, when you bring your real world emotions into your work, is that it starts, just like nature does, it starts seeping into the frame somehow. For me, it'll be, I'll position the camera a certain way, I'll have the blocking differently in a certain way. You don't know what's happening in your life, like, but I know now, like when I look back at everything, I can look at the film, look at the project, look at the music video, look at something and go like, I just look at it, I look at a frame from it, and I'm like, I know what I was going through at this time in my life.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
can look back at the last like 10, 15 years, and I can, anything I point to or I think about, or if it's on my show reel, I'm like, I can pause it and go like, okay, this is where I was mentally and emotionally at this point.
Hmm. But on like on set, like how are you as a person? Like, do you manage to be calm and collected and just very relaxed, or like are you like always anxious and worked up, or is it a
No,
healthy balance between the two?
there's always a little anxiety inside,
Right.
but I think um, I've been told I have quite a bit of equanimity and stoicism on set. Uh, is Yeah, I think that's just important. Like people look to the DP for just because the director's so they have to be really, really open emotionally, because they have such a direct line of communication with the actors, who also have to be open very emotionally. So I think my job by the time I'm on set, is I've worked out all the ideas and emotions of what I need to bring to that day and what I need to bring to that scene. And a lot of it is like executing it and getting all the departments involved in making sure, like, hey, the director's talking to the actors, you guys do this, you guys go set up in the next room, this is what I want the lights to be, or like discussing quick scheduling stuff with the ADs, just making sure everything is running well, and making sure that everyone is working calmly and that I'm calm. And usually I am. I mean, life is short, and at the end of the day, we're making like fantasy shit.
Yeah,
Like this is all make believe like that we're making. So I
yeah.
try to make sure that like we don't get too self important. But
Or
it's
yeah,
hard. It's tough. A couple of weeks in, and then like it just kind of feels like this is the whole world. So that's hard to do when you're a couple of weeks in. But
but
you have to
have
constantly remind.
yeah, but also like you talk about making index cards, diagrams, and mind maps. But were you always kind of person like even 10 years back, or is this something that you have leaned into with every project?
No, this is very much like how you even growing up, like all the short films I did as a teenager and stuff like that. I enjoyed doing this stuff and breakdowns and color coding and figuring stuff out. And a lot of this was also film school kind of helped. They're very formal about it. They make sure everything, all the paperwork is kind of handed. And so those practices kind of just naturally carried their way over into real world. And I just find it helpful. I think that's also what allows me to be super calm on set, is because I know I've done my lighting diagrams. Like I've done my where the actor needs to be from here to there. I'll even place like in this scene, I want the monitor in that room around this
Mm.
corner behind this door. And I've thought about I want the cables running through here because we're never looking at that angle. Like I've thought about all this before. So then on the day, it just makes me very clear. Like I have nothing to worry. I
Yeah.
can just sit there, just everything can just play along, and then I can be open to new things. If there's a better shot, the director wants to have a conversation. If I want to have a chat with the actors or the team, I can. Yeah.
But how do you look back at your earlier work? Like, are you able to own up to it, or like do many, or like many people, do you feel like overwhelmed by things you wish you had done differently, and you feel like, no, this is shit, and I could have done a lot better in this thing, or are you like, yeah, it's okay, it's done, yeah.
I think I felt like it was all shit for most of my life, and only recently have I gotten to the point where I'm like, I think it took time until I was happy enough with the work that I was doing now. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
cool. I know how to accomplish what I want to accomplish, because the like I was saying earlier, the before I always felt like what I had in my head was something, and then trying to get the entire production and the look there would just never happen. What I had in my head was always better than what I was able to accomplish through my own, mostly through my own, limitations, or through budget or this or the right locations, all these like hundreds of reasons. But now I feel like I'm better at getting to that place. And now when I look back at it, I was like, okay, don't be so hard on yourself. Like that's just what you were dealing with at that time. So now when I think back, I'm a bit easier on myself.
Hmm. And because you have worked with like so many people and so many, I mean, your IMDb is pretty staggering. But tell me a little bit about like any DPs in Pakistan whose work really kind of you look forward to.
Oh, lots. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds fantastic DPs. I really like everything Amir Mughal does. And then Noor Turk is fantastic. Ehsan Raza is fantastic. Zain Halim is incredible. There's a lot of smaller upcoming DPs, Nabil Hassan, Salar, all these guys who are doing really good work. They're all doing short films and commercials and stuff right now. But I think that I just wish there was like more of a narrative
Uh,
industry, so that a lot of these guys can start bringing that to the table, and start putting their voices into formal narrative work, because I think that you can really grow as an artist over there. So I really hope that for everyone.
but do you feel you have a community of artists, DPs, fellow DPs you can lean on for support and encouragement and practical suggestions in any situation?
Yeah, I think so. We have WhatsApp groups and this and that, so everyone communicates and helps each other out. Yeah. I
Hmm.
think the older lot, like the earlier generations, there was more. Again, it was like it's classic. It's just they were a little
Yeah,
more gatekeeping, and everyone
yeah.
now is a little more gateway. Like everyone's
Hmm.
open, so it's so beautiful. Like I think it's really nice.
Hmm. Okay, recommendations time. Tell me about a shot in a recent Pakistani film that took your breath away. Like a shot or a scene in any, yeah, in any Pakistani film that really took your breath away and felt like, wow. Could be a film or a series or anything, yeah.
Mm, trying to think. Um, I mean, I think I really like a lot of the work people do in music videos. A lot.
Hmm.
Like I find a lot of the Coke Studio stuff that work that happens because I think DPs really get a lot of good production design to
You
work
also
with.
have short. You also have short, no, couple of Coke Studio videos. Ah, you have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ah.
So I think DPs get a lot of good production design and creative, good, decent budgeted production design to work with. Like I was saying, like so much of our job is like capturing what's there and then kind of augmenting and bringing that out. So I think DPs really get a lot to work with over there. So I've loved all the DPs I said, any of them who've done Coke Studio videos. There's so much there which I'm just astounded by, especially Amir Mughal's work. Like in a couple
Hmm.
of these videos, there's one video in like a forest or something, which I'm just like I'm just stared at that for minutes. The entire video, I'm just like, this is stunning. This is so good.
Hmm. Hmm.
It really.
Any and any international film recommendations that you have seen recently and you really liked? Not just any short, but any film, any international film that you really like.
One sec. Watched. I usually write down all the ones I'm watching lately. Oh, I recently watched Kinds of Kindness.
Oh yeah.
York
Oh,
is
oh.
whack. So I kind of love that a lot. Um, I think visually,
Which was your favorite segment? Which was your favorite segment in Kinds of Kindness?
oh, they're also different. They're also
Oh
silly. They're so absurd. Like they're all different. I don't know. I don't know which one's my
yeah,
favorite. Did you have a
yeah.
favorite one?
Maybe the first one. The first one I think. The third
Okay.
one not so much, but I think the first and the second one. Yeah. But
Yeah, and then I watched Anatomy of a Fall as well recently. That was beautiful and tough to watch. And
Anatomy is quite a long, an old film. I mean, not old film, but long ago.
yeah, yeah, you're right. It was like I think last year, but I just caught up with it recently. But
Mm-hmm.
I found it really powerful. Yeah.
Hmm. But do you watch a lot of stuff? I mean, you're always shooting so much, but do you like find time to watch
Yeah.
stuff? Like, when do you even do that?
Yeah, yeah, it's tough actually. I think I get to do it when I take my breaks. Like I'll take I'll shoot for like a month, 2 months, or 3 months, and then I'll take a couple weeks off where I just hermit and see friends, see family, work on myself, meditate, exercise, eat,
Hmm.
cook, and watch stuff and read. I read a lot. I read a lot of books
Yeah,
like all the time. So
and
that's my
yeah,
reading time as well.
yeah. Any book you have been reading recently? What books have you been reading recently?
Oh, recently I'm in a book club. Recently we read Hello Beautiful, which was really nice. The last book I read, which I loved, was by Gabriel Zevin or Gabriel Levin, something like that. Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I think
Yeah,
that
the gamers one, right?
it just stunning and such a
Stunning.
visual. Like I feel like it's as visual as any movie I've ever seen. Like it's
I think it's even
so I can still visualize
it's
the entire.
already I think it's already being turned into a movie as we speak. So of course it would be, but
I'm sure. I'm sure.
that was my last question. That's all. Thanks a lot for doing this, for taking so much time to speak to me. I'm always like super eager to follow your work, and I hope we can talk again because I have lots and lots to talk to you about. But yeah, but thank you so much for doing this. And I will bug you again to talk to me because there's so much more to unpack. But thank you so much for taking the time.
Please do, and thank you for taking the initiative and the time. And I'm sorry to bug you and stress you out as well.
Okay, 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 Mo. Thanks, and bye. Take care. Bye, bye.
Take care. Thank you for this. This is a lovely conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank
I hope something
thank
comes out of it. All
Of course, yeah,
right.
yeah.